Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Silent Hill commentary. I've been looking forward to this one. Nice, friendly user on Twitter whose name I forgot to note down before I started this commentary.
Thanks for nothing.
Donated it to me Silent Hill 2 and 3 on PS2 because I was complaining about how shit the HD collection was. That really...
And it is.
Yeah, that really took me off guard how bad that was. So,
which always amazes me because I remember beforehand you made a tweet defending the idea of the thing, and then you actually played it.
I defended the voice acting thing because I really didn't care. I mean, and yeah, that's the least of my worries as far as the HD collection went. Apparently, I expected it to be better because Konami did the Metal Gear Solid ports, and those were good.
Yeah, I think someone retweeted it was like a tale of betrayal in 2 tweets.
In any case, eagle-eyed viewers will be able to tell just from this intro alone that I've already gotten Good Ending Plus. We are indeed doing a Good Ending Plus playthrough with this run. Unfortunately, I didn't quite manage a 100% item collection playthrough. I went for it.
No.
Dear God, I did. But I don't know. I missed 1 or 2 items at some point, and I have no idea where.
So I'm assuming you added the borders to yourself from left and right?
Oh, yeah, I added those.
Okay. I know for some reason I'm thinking it's like nurse by day, cop by night.
When did you get time to sleep?
Yeah. Well, what does Batman do?
We have the drug addict nurse over there, spoiler alert, and we also have Sybil Bennett, who's my favorite character in this goddamn game, by process of elimination, mostly.
Oh.
But
I mean, who else is left?
Harry Mason.
Top girl.
also my favorite character in the Silent Hill movie. Unfortunately, she gets a very disgusting death by burning.
I was going to say the only thing I remember about her is from the movie.
I honestly, when it comes to Silent Hill, the only 2 characters I immediately think of is Sybil and Harry Mason. And maybe, what was his name, James?
James Sunderland.
James Sunderland.
James Sunderland,
game.
yeah. Well, you should be thinking of Heather Mason. She's the best character in the series. But
so I should stress again, I don't play Silent Hill. Like, I've only seen it in action. I never actually played anything.
I've only ever played 2 to some extent, not entirely.
I'm a wuss, so I haven't played any of them.
you guys are missing out so hard. Not necessarily
No
on
doubt.
this. Not necessarily on this first one. This is the kind of clunky first entry that most series have.
Yeah, first entry jank.
Yeah, first entry jank, and well, the end game is kind of a mess in terms of game design. However,
And then the dog comes out of nowhere. It was you all along.
the dog ending.
It's
from
actually a
two,
quick
yeah.
question. Actually, Ted, do you avoid horror games even to this day, or is
I'm
it just
a,
something you?
I'm a
went through as
wuss, man. Like, I don't do good with scary things. It's also, I'm also an eternal 6-year-old, and they're not bright and shiny enough for me, too. So it's just not my thing, and I understand that.
Look at Sybil's motorcycle there on the right. Come on, that's plenty shiny. Come on.
I don't know. It looks a little, like, scuffed up, kinda.
That's the most you're going to see of that motorcycle. She crashed it outside of town, as you saw in the intro.
Damn it.
Well, at
She
least
had
you
one
would
job.
have if you paid attention. That was one thing that the movie carried over. In any case, this is Harry Mason. He's
The most bland man in America.
He's a Stephen King protagonist, and by that I mean he's a writer. And that's no coincidence. We're starting on Bachman Road here, which is named for Richard Bachman, Stephen King's pen name from when he released some of his old novel manuscripts to see if they worked. I think he did 3 novels under that pen name, and they were all novels that he wrote before Carrie. I think. I could be misremembering that. Anyway, it is snowing, which is already a warning sign because, well, it's a resort town. We came here because, well, vacation time, resort. But it's snowing. And yes, it's snow. It's not ash. That was a movie-only thing. Someone's going to comment and say it was ash. I just know it. It's not. Although,
The movie is a very weird beast.
Snow
you know,
and drugs.
burning ash, catch him to death, and scattering to the winds is something I've always wanted to do.
Oh, what?
Wow, that's
what's
Christ, Lewis.
what's the town in Hoenn that where you run around and get all the ash in the grass and stuff?
Oh, I hated that place because
Yeah,
all
me
you find
too.
is Spindas, and I want a Skarmory, goddammit.
So, the story behind this game is kind of interesting. Konami obviously wanted a Resident Evil ripoff. They wanted their cinematic movie-like horror game, and they put a team on it, and they wanted a Resident Evil ripoff. The team was bumbling and inept at first, and they took so long getting it done that Konami eventually just gave up and said, you know what, just do what you want, kind of.
You can still see remnants of it from time to time because, hell, the game begins when you hit start with the scare cord, exactly like Resident Evil.
Yeah, but when they let Team Silent just do what they wanted, the result was something pretty damn original for the time,
Lighting.
The lighting engine is I call it a lighting engine in very loose terms.
It's the closest you're going to get at this period in time.
You see, for a PS1 game, though, I will say that this does look pretty, I'm comparing it to Resident Evil 1, which we just did, and that's all pre-rendered and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that the draw distance is crap, but that does allow them to make everything very detailed.
Just about the only thing that this game falls short on compared to Resident Evil is the character models and character animations. The faces aren't quite as detailed. They're somewhere between Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid. And look at how Harry Mason runs, and just speaks for itself.
He's got to stick up his ass.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And even in Silent Hill 2, it falls short of Resident Evil because the running animation, although it's better than it is here, doesn't have a staircase animation. They don't get that until 3, and even in 3, it looks a bit jank.
Touch angles.
It's effective though.
Yeah,
it's the benefit of not being pre-rendered.
The dizzying camera movement in this section really makes the scene, and
that's
true
thankfully
in
something you
places here.
That's only something you can do when you actually have full 3D instead of pre-rendered.
Yeah. I think Dino Crisis had some of that going on, but Dino Crisis also had some really bleak, barren environments, so it's got nothing on this game. This alley scene is so iconic that it's actually like the one thing the movie really almost got right. Except there's a big ass swarm of monsters at the end of it, so it still winds up being more of a Resident Evil movie than a Silent Hill movie. And that's a distinction that a lot of people are gonna probably look at me like, well, what's the difference? There's a lot of difference, man.
The Silent Hill movie at least tries in some points. So.
It does. It really does. And I feel bad actually criticizing it because there are so many things about that movie that are done so well. The acting is good. The sets are nice. The monsters are nice, even if they're ripped from the wrong damn game most of the time. And
I'm actually surprised you guys are bringing up the movie so much, considering that you guys did no such thing for the Resident Evil commentary.
I think the Resident Evil movie isn't anything like the game, right?
The Resident Evil movie is a campy piece of shit for the first entry, and then just a piece of shit for every movie after that. The Silent Hill movie, honest to God, tried to the point where it actually used music from the games and everything, which is unheard of in video game adaptations. It's just there's so many things they did wrong with that movie, but this scene is so great.
What is this?
I'm so enraptured by this.
It's hard to convey just how good this scene is through video footage. You have to play it yourself to get how creepy it is. These are the demon children. The European version of the game, I believe, actually had these monsters replaced by another monster that appears later in the game, because apparently the prospect of killing children in a school setting in particular, because that's our first major area.
Come on, Harry Mason, defeat Vile.
was too much for a lot of people, understandably so. We dodged a bullet there. I think was it Columbine happened like very shortly after this game was released, or in the same year at least, and this game came out just too early for them to push that same censorship on our version.
Yeah, particularly in the United States, you'd never get a setting like this ever again.
So we got the Grey Children. I forget if that's their official name, but that's the first enemy that we got in the game, and I'm glad we did, because the other enemy, the Mumbler, is just not nearly as cool. or scary.
So does this game have tank controls or normal controls?
Yes, it has tank controls.
Okay, I thought so.
Again, Resident Evil start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for 2 and 3, you have the option between tank controls and regular controls. I actually prefer tank controls in this instance, particularly because the camera's swinging all over the place half the time. You need that lack of disorientation a little bit more here than you do in Resident Evil, I find. But Silent Hill 4 has the same camera, but no tank controls. Really hard to adjust to, just saying. Hi, Sybil. How are you doing?
Is Silent Hill 4 the bad one? Like, I know that...
Not exactly.
It has some interesting ideas from what I can tell. It just doesn't really do anything interesting with them.
Oh, really? It has some really interesting ideas and some really interesting ways of telling its story, but it just doesn't stick the landing on the gameplay. They got rid of the combat that they've had for three games, and the combat they replaced it with was pretty bland and focuses on having a charge up super swing with your weapon that you're going to be spamming all over the place, because it also gives you invincibility frames. Invincibility frames in a horror game. Just like, why?
I have the touch of God now.
But if you're going to talk about the bad one, that would either be...
Well, I mean, there's a lot of bad
some
ones
people.
because there's a million spin-offs.
Well, there's not that many spin-offs of Silent Hill, actually. There's the spin-off on the Wii, and then there's the 2 other sequels that are sort
Like
of
there's
Resi 4 style.
There's
Homecoming and Downpour are full-on sequels, and those were the ones I was going to mention as the bad one. Although Downpour is actually pretty okay. It has a lot of boredom in the overworld, though.
I thought the Wii one was a semi-remake of this.
It's sort of an alternate universe reimagining spin-off kind of thing, but it's clearly not a main series Silent Hill game. It goes in a very different direction with its gameplay, and especially there's no real combat for one thing. It's sort of a psychological trippy thing where you're playing as a different Harry Mason, looking for a different Cheryl. With 3 or so different Sybil Bennetts based on what your personality choices are. And that's a really interesting thing the Wii game does, but I'm not really going to go into it because I haven't played it yet. I've only researched it. In any case...
It's dangerous to go alone.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
What is a man? That's the only thing I know about Harry Mason, is that he's voiced by Michael G., who was also Dracula in Symphony of the Night.
Konami really got their money's worth.
This town is a creature of chaos. It can take many incarnations.
It's funny because it's true. In any case, Sybil Bennett gives you a gun. You might be wondering why she's giving you her gun and why she magically has another gun later on. Actually, in the novel, she finds this gun in the same alley that she finds Harry in, and she's just giving him a spare, which makes sense. Unfortunately, the novels of the Silent Hill games, which we didn't get in the West, well, they're supposed to be really good, but we never got an official translation. The closest thing to a novelization of these games we have are some surprisingly good ones on fanfiction.net. At least I think they're on fanfiction.net.
So I have to ask real quick: are the cutscenes pre-rendered, or is the frame rate just take a dive? Like
that's just the frame rate.
Okay.
You might be fooled into thinking they're pre-rendered because there's this kind of filter over the graphics that.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that is the PlayStation 3's smoothing effect and how much of it is actually native to the game, though. I had this game on my system for like 2 or 3 goddamn years before the Silent Hill 2 and 3 donation happened, and I had to play it before getting to 2 and 3, because otherwise it would just be weird going back to this after the others. And that was a good decision, because you actually do need to at least understand what happens in 1 to get much out of Silent Hill 3. 2 is a standalone. You don't need to play any other game to understand 2. You just need to understand that Silent Hill is a fucked up place, and yeah, your character.
It's a creature of chaos.
This place is too low class for health juice. It all has health drink.
I love that. I love the Max Payne face on Harry Mason, though.
Harry.
Like I said, it's like between Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid. He sort of has more of a face than Solid Snake would, but
Yeah.
You mean Solid Snake with his
just having eyes.
bandana for a face and a line for a mouth?
yeah,
And
pretty much.
nobody has eyes in that damn game.
No.
Yeah. Like, and I'm halfway convinced that this game sort of might actually use the same engine as Metal Gear Solid. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the
yeah, I
case,
guess
actually.
it wouldn't surprise me based on how the graphic smoothing works on textures.
Yeah. You gotta love the scroll through a line of three-dimensional objects inventory system straight out of fucking Tomb Raider.
Well, at the very least,
what
you're
I
not.
think of, yeah.
At the very least, you're not limited to like 6 slots like Resident Evil.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't really get to the point of splitting your inventory into different item categories until 3. So in 1 and 2, you just have this long, ever-growing line of items that gets kind of tedious to scroll through, honestly.
Do you
Like
have
that
an
radio
item
sound?
limit at all, or
You don't have an item limit. You can hold as much ammo as you want, as many items as you want. It gets a bit silly by the end of the game because you always have more ammo than you need. That's especially true in this game because Silent Hill is more of a melee fighting game than a Resident Evil shoot 'em up kind of deal. I mean, I'm using a gun here, but that's because I have a kitchen knife and I'm fighting a flying enemy. You just don't do that, right? But even in this game, the kitchen
Fighting
knife,
is weak against flying. You know, how hard is it to punch a bird?
yeah. Well, even the kitchen knife in this game is better than the knife in Resident Evil. I mean, they even have a demo that plays in the title screen to show you how to use it effectively. In any case, if you get a good hang of your melee weapons, you can really save a lot of ammo in this game. Unfortunately, the melee combat doesn't really get any good until 3. It's a bit bland in 2. 2 is...
So you can't even leave the place without your fuckery detector.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, in 2, James Sunderland just kind of flails his arms about like an idiot whenever he tries to attack.
it's almost like he's a normal person with no combat experience.
You know how to swing a bat.
He does have a couple different ways of attacking with his melee weapons depending on how you do it, but it's a bit unintuitive figuring out how to do it. Heather Mason, surprisingly the teenage girl, is a better fighter than either Harry or James. So, yeah, and she gets a giant spiked maul and a katana by the end of the game too, so it gets a bit ridiculous.
Hey, you know what teenager doesn't know how to use a katana by this point? You know.
We all went through our weave phase.
Well, she also Heather Mason is a bit of a badass, but like they kind of established that she's a tough character early on. In a kind of a clever way. She has a knife in her inventory from the start rather than finding it like the other two, and if you check it in your inventory, she just says, "I know it's horrible, but I like carrying this thing around." She also has, like, later on when you visit her room, you find a taser that her father got her for self-defense, but she doesn't carry it around because it's bulky and gets in the way. Grade A decision making there, Heather. If only you'd known that a monster attack was going to happen, maybe you would have carried that around with you. In any case, this is probably my least favorite part of old school Silent Hill. Running around town.
Yeah, running around town and have no idea where you're going.
Yeah. No, it's probably one of the reasons that I'm so endeared to Silent Hill 3 is that this part is pretty much absent from the entire game. You don't actually even go to Silent Hill until the very end in Silent Hill 3. So, like, there's a short section where you're running from point A to B in the foggy town, but it's sort of a one and done kind of thing. It's
So we're not in Silent Hills. We're in its neighboring town, Quiet Inclines.
Well, actually, I think you're in an actual town in the state of Maine, like a town that
Oh,
exists.
of course it's
and-
Maine.
Of
Okay.
course, it's Maine.
Never live in Maine ever.
Basically, the Silent Hill supernatural fuckery leaves Silent Hill to pursue Heather, and that makes more sense once you know what's going on in Silent Hill 3.
What is it? Death from Final Destination?
Well, I would explain what's up with that, but it's also kind of a spoiler for this game. Silent Hill 3 is the true sequel to Silent Hill 1, and it picks up where the good ending of this game left off. So, to explain...
The good ending is having Silent Hill follow you.
Well,
I mean, I guess it's better than dying.
to explain Heather Mason, I'd have to explain what happens at the end of this game. So, I'm not going to do that until we get there. I just found the Key of Lion. There are 3 Wizard of Oz themed keys scattered around town, and if you know where they are, you can pick them up straight away. But you actually have to find, like if you're playing blind, you have to find the locked door that you need to open with them, and there'll be a map that points you in the direction of the 3 keys there. Now these monsters are based on pterodactyls, in case you couldn't tell. We are fighting small pterodactyl monsters in a horror
They look
game.
like Hellspawn to me.
Well,
Yeah, they're all
everyone thinks they're
fleshy and
demons,
stuff.
but they're based on pterodactyls. The thing about Silent Hill is that all the creations are psychological. In Silent Hill 1's case, it's not Harry Mason's nightmares that are being shown. It's a girl named Alessa, who we'll find out about later on in the game.
I was going to say, it's odd for Harry Mason to have a deep-seated fear of pterodactyls.
Well, yeah, deep-seated fears are what they are, but Alessa's a little girl, and her nightmares are all from rather random sources. The dogs are there because she has a phobia of really big dogs. And the pterodactyls are based on a book she read, which I think is The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah, that's a dull book.
Well,
Interesting idea, I guess, at the time, but...
Well, nobody
Yeah.
told her that it was dull before she started reading it.
well, she probably wouldn't have cared. Her life wasn't exactly sunshine and rainbows. You know, you take your entertainment where you can get it.
yeah,
that.
I'm just saying.
This Resident Evil's more of a horror movie kind of experience. Silent Hill is much closer to a horror book, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Are we going to... speaking of the monsters, are we going to get to the doghouse and say there's no dog here?
Unfortunately, I think I accidentally skipped that message.
Aww.
Is that in reference to something? I mean,
The joke is that there's a demon dog like right next to it trying to attack you
okay.
when you first get there.
well, I mean, it's sort of correct. I mean, that thing is no dog.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny oversight on the developer's part there. Oh man, running around the street. I love this part. I really do. The thing is, the open world town stuff is a really novel concept that works surprisingly well in this kind of horror game. The irony is that it wasn't Silent Hill that finally got it right. It was The Evil Within 2 that finally got it right. The game that was a successor to Resident Evil.
You know, that does make sense, though, because wandering around not knowing what you're doing could lead to tension, you know, before you get just aggravated at it, obviously. But the idea,
how
works.
much patience do you have before you get
Well,
aggravated?
even in this game, there are flashes of brilliance. Like, at the beginning, one of your first thoughts is, I need supplies, because this is a survival horror, right? So you look at your map, which is a really cool actual town map that you would find in, like, a tourist stop, where Harry Mason will actually scribble in X little cross out dead ends and note down important locations in a red pen.
So you're making a quick stop at the 812.
Yeah, so you see a convenience store up at the top, and you might think, hey, if I go here, I can maybe find some health items. Lo and behold, you can go inside the convenience store and find yourself some health items and an extra save point.
And a very
And
old
the
school
only- the
photocopier.
last can of baked beans left in the town.
I like that kind of stuff because it makes you feel a bit smart when you do that. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of that in Silent Hill 1's version of Silent Hill, or Silent Hill 2's for that matter. There's a lot more to find in Silent Hill when you're exploring it as, what was his name? I forget his name. The guy from Downpour. And, you know, I haven't played Homecoming, so I can't speak for that one. But, you know, I would have appreciated more of it in the first 2 games because the running around the foggy town gets kind of tedious, especially on second and third playthroughs. The real meat of the game is, I guess you would call them the dungeons of the game, because that's effectively what they are.
You mean the school from Kindergarten Cop?
Yeah, the School from Kindergarten Cop. They base the first level on the School from Kindergarten Cop. It's a very
Wait,
odd
actually?
choice. Yes, actually,
Yeah.
it's like based
What?
on the architecture of the place.
Oh my!
It's,
They didn't have it. Remember, this is the late '90s. They didn't exactly have easily searchable internet databases to look at American schools, so they just kind of took Kindergarten Cop, which was like at the rental store.
Used movies.
Yeah.
But, okay. All right.
The rabbit hole goes deeper, my friend. You will see as we progress.
It's not a dog. It's not a dog.
What the hell?